Welcome to the 15th episode of Season 3 of the Ubuntu UK podcast. It's Monday 30th of August 2010, and in this episode we're going to talk to Jonty Waring about Hackspace and Bruno Guerin about Shotwell. We'll of course cover the latest news, events, bit about Ubuntu, command line love, and go over your feedback. I'm Alan, and here with me in Studio A is Laura. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Okay.
What have you been up to?
Not a lot. Busy at work, so nothing interesting really.
Nothing at all interesting.
Nothing interesting to this podcast.
Oh? Yeah.
Uh-huh. Interesting to anybody at all?
Yeah, interesting to any other podcast? What are you trying to say? You
Okay.
moonlighting?
There was no emphasis on this.
Okay. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think
tend
so.
to do that. Okay. Tony, what have you been doing?
I've been doing a couple of things. I've been enjoying the Ubuntu One Love.
Oh.
Yeah.
You got it working?
Yeah.
What bit of it? File syncing?
The file syncing, yes. That's the main bit the only bit I've used, in fact. I had upgraded the last of my machines to 10.04 at some point and thought I'd give it a go. And I had to use a special command that I found on the wiki page to clear out the old broken shares and stuff.
Right.
Had you used it before?
Yeah, I tried it and it didn't work.
Broken share. Okay, because it was sharing a folder and something was broken.
Something was broken about that folder.
You have to clear some stuff.
Yeah.
Did you have to download a piece of Python code and run it?
No, it
It
was
was
just
a command that you already had.
Yeah, it was the Ubuntu One tool command line tool.
UNSD tool.
Yeah, it just unsynced the thing, and then it was all fine. And once I'd worked out that you can have specific folders uploaded or synced, as well as anything you put in Ubuntu One just appears at the top level. Once I got that round my head around that, it was fine, and it just worked.
I haven't shared any other folders. I'm very wary of sharing other folders. I just get a bit twitchy about accidentally sharing my entire file system and it trying to upload like.
Well, I've got 3 files in mine at the moment. One of them's the largest one is about 7 meg. Which
Is one of them called test file?
No. The main one I got in there is the talk for Os Barcamp that I've been just updating, my podcast talk. And I thought if I did it in there, I could work it on my computer upstairs. But if I'm sitting downstairs in the evening and I think of a thing that I want to do with it, I can use my laptop and update it. And
I had the data loss issue because I was doing pretty much that with Ubuntu One.
did you?
Yes.
Oh,
I personally wouldn't open a file from the Ubuntu One folder. I'd open
okay.
it somewhere else and then copy it in there as a backup or something.
Well, I've got a backup anyway.
I had a spreadsheet open that was in the Ubuntu One folder, and due to a hardware problem on my PC crashed. And when my PC crashed, I don't know whether it was an ext4 or an OpenOffice thing, but the file got zeroed when I rebooted.
Oh, and then it's
And then it synchronized that 0 up and then down to all my other machines. So the
Nice.
file was lost. Gone
Nice.
forever.
If only it did revision control.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But yeah, so it seems to work on that very basic sort of little
That's
tryout
good.
I did, which is quite good. And I upgraded my Mythbuntu, my Revo, to 10.04. And that's got to be the smoothest Mythbuntu upgrade or MythTV upgrade I've ever done. It did the database upgrade itself and got some nice new little bits in there. It's quite good.
Nice.
Yep.
Any particular funky new features in new with Ubuntu that you've noticed?
No, not really. In all honesty, no. I mean, it's just a bit better, a bit more polished in a few places. It's quite.
Do you
nice.
have to do front end and back end together, or have you only got one box?
I've only got one box.
Ah, okay.
But yes, you do have to have them on the same version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fell foul of that.
What about you? What have you been doing?
I've been on holiday.
Yay.
Oh, so you've not had any internet access for a week or so, and you've been doing nothing technological, and you've got nothing to say. Is that right?
Kind of. Almost. Except
So what did you really do?
Well, I took my phone with me and I had a 3G connection and I was able to read my email and, Twitter and all that kind of stuff. I did take my laptop with me.
Yes.
Where did you go?
Isle of Wight.
Oh, yeah.
So a bit of a barren,
they have 3G
barren
connectivity
frozen
over there?
wasteland. Yeah, it was okay in various places in the house where we were staying.
Right.
There were certain rooms. Luckily, it laying in bed was one of the places where it worked brilliantly. And sitting on a certain chair in the sofa in the lounge was working brilliantly.
Which became known as Daddy's chair, didn't
Yeah,
it?
pretty much. Yeah. And there was a one spot in the kitchen, so I could usually be found leaning over a kitchen side, and I would usually cook the meals on the proviso that I could keep my phone with me in there as well. Mainly because I'm playing Scrabble with my wife, who was in the other room.
Right. The modern family.
But on a different network, so she sat in a different chair. So that worked out all right.
There was quite a lot of rain last week, wasn't there?
There was, so we spent a lot of time playing Scrabble. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Isle of Wight is a great holiday destination.
It is. It's a lovely place.
We've been several times.
So we've got Jonty Waring on the phone from the London Hackspace. Hi, Jonty. How you doing?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks.
Cool. So, what's a hackspace?
People define them in different ways, but I like to define them as a collaborative workshop run by the members. Other people like to think of them more as sort of a co-working space where you work on things that you want to work on in your own time, rather than being things you're paid for. But given that people do work on paid projects, it doesn't really work. But yeah, I like it as it's a collaborative workshop where people can do anything they like, or if you like, it's a bit like your garden shed, but other people are there.
I've seen these on, or not necessarily called hackspaces, but these kind of workshops in maker magazines and on videos in the US. Is it something that's coming over to the UK? Is there more of them over here now?
So they started out in Germany in sort of about no one's entirely sure, but sort of about the early 90s, and they existed only in Germany for a long, long time, and then suddenly in the US, about 2003, 2004, a group of guys from Washington, D.C. went over to some of the German spaces and decided they wanted their own, so they started their own space. And then it took about another sort of 3 to 4 years for them to get anywhere after that. And then last year, in 2009, we decided that we wanted one in the UK and set up our own in London. And suddenly they started taking off everywhere. About sort of 2 months after we started, and we aren't the reason that happened, it just seemed to line up. There was a Wired article that helped quite a lot, but it's they're spreading all across the UK now. There's sort of 14, 15 across the UK, with most of the groups are still forming. Some of them do have physical places, but yeah, they're definitely coming to the UK, and it looks like they'll be here for a long, long time.
So is it the social aspect, as you said, the social garden shed, or is it that a lot of people just don't have the space to do this on their own, or another reason why people enjoy them?
I think it's a mix, and I think it does depend on the city you're in. So in London, we all live in very small flats, unless you're quite rich. And my very small flat doesn't have room for a lathe or anything else that I'd like to use. So for me, it's more about sharing space where I can get access to the tools. The social aspect sort of took me by surprise more than anything else. And it turns out I've got a gigantic group of friends there and people I can ask advice from on most things. In other towns, it seems to be that it's more the social aspect than the tools, because everyone has a lot more space, and they go there purely to be able to meet with other people. I think it's possibly the population density means that there are less sort of hackers in many other towns, and it's much nicer to have a place where you can go and meet and you can gather together and put on workshops and that kind of thing. So I think it varies, but for me, it's now a mix of the two. I go there just to sit and have a beer sometimes, instead of just working, and it's a lovely place to be.
So what kind of stuff goes on? So it's a hackspace, and people can do stuff there, and there might be a lathe or some other big bulky equipment that people can't get at in their own homes. But what kind of things are they doing there?
Well, I mean, it varies really, and the big bulky equipment's only part of it, because a lot of the time, to be completely honest, I'll turn up there just with my laptop, and I can do that at home. But again, that's the social aspect that coming back to it, and it's nice to be with other people. But people work on anything from, say, repairing their bike, to building robots, to just playing with equipment they've got hold of, to actually doing contract work occasionally. Some people run their businesses from there. I mean, not so much in our place, but I mean, I've done contract work from there. Sometimes people just come there to play games with each other. It's what you make of it, really. There is no real focus. We try and keep it completely neutral. I turned up the other day and a guy was being shown how to sew, and that was a bit weird, but that's totally fine. I mean, there was a StarCraft match that went on for something like 24 hours the other day, and that's also absolutely fine. It's just what people want to do. If we put a focus on something, it turns away a whole new area of people that we haven't met yet. And we're trying to get in touch with the crafting community a lot recently, because they've got things they can teach us. And we really want to get them involved. And a lot of people are quite interested in doing intelligent clothing, so building sensors into clothing and that kind of thing. And to be completely honest, I don't have no idea where to start with that, but the crafting community in London do, and they can help us with that. It's a cultural exchange thing, no matter what you're doing.
So you're somewhere in London, but we'll get some details from you later about the website and all that kind of how to get there and everything. But what about the location? How did you come across the place that you have, and what's the history of that? Have you had more than one place, or is it?
We're actually on our second place now.
Right.
We've been in existence in London for a year and 8 months, I think. Don't quote me on that. But we started out and had no place for a long time. We used to work out of pub basements and back rooms and anywhere we could, and people would just meet up and talk and work on projects together. And it was all about building the community, because if you don't have a community, you don't really have a space when you show up later. And it's a bit weird when you sort of share a room with someone you haven't met them. So we started the community and we got that working. And then when we had enough money together, we found a place above an archery range in North London, which was a bit odd, but it was very cheap, and that was absolutely fine. And we stayed there for about a year until we got evicted, which was not ideal.
Not through anything you'd done. You hadn't drilled through the ceiling.
It was purely we were subletting from the archery range, and it turns out that they actually weren't allowed to sublet to us.
Oops.
And the neighbours didn't like us very much, and we got evicted. Not because we were noisy; they just didn't like that we were there at all. So that wasn't ideal, and we had a week to find a new place. So within a week, we found a new place in Hoxton, right next to the tube station, and signed and moved in within a week. And it's an old industrial unit. It's not really perfect, but it works brilliantly for us because we can make a big mess in there. We can knock walls through. We can do whatever the hell we like, really. And they're quite fine with that.
And how long's the lease on that place?
It's 3 months, actually, so it's not too bad. It means if everything does go wrong, we've got enough money in the bank to pay for that 3 months. We always make sure we've got enough reserves. The only problem is that because it's London, it's incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
So how does Hackspace fund itself then, if it's a very expensive venue?
Funded entirely by memberships and donations generally. So we say that you can pay whatever you like. Some Hackspaces around the world say there are set limits, so you pay £40 a month or dollars or whatever, and you get a certain thing. If you pay less, you get less than that. But we just say everyone has the same, and as long as you're paying over £5 a month, we don't care what you're paying. Some people pay a hell of a lot more than that. Some people just pay that £5. Whatever you can afford and whatever you think it's worth.
It says on the website that there's a sort of £40 recommended amount.
Yeah, we put that on there when we were really desperate for cash, because when we moved into the new place, it was, we were very, very short of money. We could only just about afford the rent for maybe 3 months, and then we would have gone bust. So we put that up there to encourage people to pay a bit more, and now it's turned out that people keep going, I can't afford it because it's £40. It's like, not £40, you can pay what you like, so we're actually removing that.
Right, fair enough.
But we like people paying what they can afford, because that way we get people who are just students or are on the dole or whatever, and they can come and they can afford to be there, and we gain their skills and we gain their knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, £40 over the course of a year is quite a substantial amount, but I guess it's London, so you've always got that issue that it's going to be an expensive place to get property.
Exactly, yeah. When we ran the numbers recently, we discovered that there weren't actually that many people paying £40, and the average comes out at about £23, I think, which is less, but that's still affordable for most people. But a lot of people do pay less than that, and that's absolutely fine. As long as we can pay the bills, we really don't care. And that's absolutely fine.
So what are the bills? Obviously you've got rent, but do you have any other outgoings?
Other than, say, we pay for internet access and that kind of thing, not really. Most of our equipment is either donated to us by members. For example, our entire metalworking shop was donated by one guy who had it in his back room.
Wow.
And it was kind of amazing. But everything else we get, we tend to do through pledges. So we recently bought a very large laser cutter, which is extremely expensive and funded entirely through people paying a bit more. And they paid however much they want to pay for it until we had enough money to pay for that. And that's how we try and do everything, because it means that if we took money out of our membership fees for the space, so I'm paying £20 a month, and most of that goes on an item I'm never going to use, I'm not going to be particularly happy about it. Whereas pledges, everyone knows that they're paying for something they want.
Right.
But in terms of outgoings, other than we do buy some basic stock, so simple electronic components, bits of wood, that kind of thing. Just stuff to keep there that people are going to need, and that's dealt with as part of your membership fee. But we try and keep that as minimal as possible because people start complaining.
So how many people are members of your Hackspace, and does it go up and down a lot?
It's varied. We've got a brilliant graph which sort of shows where the entire time we've existed, the number of members we've had, and we did have a big dip in the middle at one point where we've been in existence for maybe 6 months, and we hadn't got a space yet, and people started going, nothing's ever going to happen, and people stopped paying and that kind of thing. But since we've had a space, it's been on a continuous sort of curve upwards. Currently, we have, if I remember correctly, 85 paying members.
Oh wow!
But we have a hell of a lot more that show up who aren't paying. We can't really estimate it, but it's probably in the hundreds who just show up maybe once a month, or just for the Tuesday evenings, or randomly on a weeknight because someone else is there. And that's absolutely fine. We really don't mind that. The only difference really is that the paying members have a key that can open the door, and they're allowed to be there all the time. But we really don't mind if non-paying members do show up and just have a look around or use the tools because they want to fix their bike or they want to cut one thing out or something. That's absolutely fine.
So you have like a free night or something, or a designated night when newbies are allowed or something?
Yeah, our Tuesday is our designated newbie night, which we get a lot of new people showing up. I'd say it's probably 50% new people every single Tuesday.
And do they bring a little donation of some kind?
They bring beer, if you can count that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
that's often welcome.
Very much, really. We do have a donation box for people to put money in, and that actually surprises me in the amount people put in. But it's really just to show people what we have and what the space is, and meet people and feel that they're comfortable paying for something that they've never been to.
So we're an Ubuntu podcast, as you may have picked up. Is there an inherent link between the activities of a Hackspace and free software or open source software, or is it just not really linked? It's just a similar geeky mindset.
It's difficult to say. I mean, there's no specific link. It's not like we're some places do try and push free and open source software. We try not to do that because it sometimes kind of annoys people and puts people off who aren't really in that. But I mean, we've got a couple of Ubuntu developers that hang around with us, and I would say that out of, say, the 85 members we have, about sort of 75 of those use Linux on a regular basis. So, if not all the time. There's a very strong link there between open source software and the space, but it's not one that we document, and it's one that just arose because they are the same type of people. And that's I kind of like it that way. I don't really want to say, we are a hackerspace, we only use free and open source software, because occasionally you buy a really expensive laser cutter and the software only works on Windows. So you have to occasionally make sort of concessions for that kind of thing.
Speaking of which, I can understand why someone might want to use your tools to fix their bike, or might want to demonstrate how to use an Arduino or do some crochet or whatever. Why do you need a laser cutter?
The laser cutter, because it's a laser and it's really cool. No,
that's a correct answer.
Prototyping. It's the same reason we have a 3D printer. It's occasionally if you want to make something very quickly, it's the best way to do it accurately and without you sort of messing up with your hand tools. And also, I mean, you can do etching and all sorts of other things. It's an incredibly versatile tool.
Does it take up a lot of space?
Yes. It's the same sort of size as a large IKEA desk. And
specifically an IKEA desk.
Yeah, because we use IKEA desks, so we know how big they are. But,
right.
The sort of the big ones you can get. But yeah, it is very large and very heavy. As with a lot of our other tools, to be honest.
And do you have any particular safety precautions for using the tools in there? How is it dealt with? Do people have to sign a disclaimer when they come in, or is it just kind of you let people in, and if they break their arm or laser their fingers off, it's up to them? We actually looked into this quite a lot when we first started the space, and this gets brought up every single time we talk about it. Sort of what's our safety precautions, what are these kind of things? And people always say, can you just sign a disclaimer? And we've got some lawyer friends who looked into this for us, and it turns out if you do sign a disclaimer saying everything that happens in here is my own fault, blah, 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 it turns out that we're not actually legally allowed to do that, and they can still take us to court for it. Right.
You can't sign away all your rights. So it's really worth knowing that, actually, because we would be in serious trouble by now. But we basically say for things like the laser cutter, you only get to use that if you're trained on it. That's mainly because it's easy to damage, not because you like to damage yourself. The other tools, we say that you should be inducted on them by someone else first. So we say on Tuesday nights, someone will walk around showing you how to use the tools and basic things. But mainly we rely on common sense, because the place is open 24 hours a day, and realistically, we can't watch people all the time. People can go in there and do things to themselves, and any security controls we put in there, someone will just override. So, yeah, it's difficult. We just have to trust that people are going to be sensible with things they don't understand.
And I guess you can't really have an on-site first aider all the time.
No, we can't, unfortunately. We do have a lot of first aid equipment, but, if you can't use it, you're still stuffed.
So that leads me on to some of the administrative stuff. You've already mentioned the financial stuff, and you're having to deal with safety. How much of a headache is all this admin on top of, I'm expecting a bunch of geeks who just want a place to go, and how much of a headache is all that admin on top of that?
Less and less these days, because there's enough people to deal with it, but for a long time it was just me and my friend Russ who co-founded it with me. And it took a lot of effort to sort of keep people coming to regular events, make sure people knew they were there, and get people's money and that kind of thing. It was a hell of a lot of work. These days, there's people there every night, so the place kind of runs itself a lot of the time. We've got things in place to deal with our accounting and that kind of stuff, and aside from having to do regular reports to comply with our company status, it's actually not that bad. The rule really is that you just do things, stop asking questions about them, stop asking for permission, and just go ahead and do it as soon as possible. And that way we don't have to approve what you're doing. We don't have to have the overhead of people sitting and debating things. And it's easier to ask for forgiveness and permission in the first place. We run the entire place like that, really. It's a lot of people walk in and say, "Oh, that can't possibly work. You can't run something like that. It can never work." And we've been going for quite a while now, and it works quite well.
I guess that's sort of inherent in the philosophy of the movement, really.
Yeah. And it's about doing things. It's not about talking about them.
Yeah.
And I really like it this way. It means I have to do a lot less than I used to. But we are a registered company, a non-profit company, mainly for legal reasons, and there is some administrative sort of stuff around that. We had to have an AGM earlier on this year for the first time, which seems ridiculous to me. And fortunately, we're working with a group called One Click Orgs, who are hoping to virtualize companies. And their plan is to write software that can run the company for you. So our constitution has been amended so that we never have to have another AGM. We can do it all online.
Right.
And which, that appeals to me. It means I can do it from my laptop and I don't have to have a meeting. So we're hoping to be able to make all of that software available to all the other hackerspaces around the world. We're helping work on it. They're running separately from us, but we're helping them work on it. And they're working on it in our space, actually. So hopefully the administration for starting a hackerspace and running it in the future will be a lot less than it is now.
So you're based in London. How many hackspaces are there around the UK and where?
Off the top of my head, there's about 14, I think. I'm going to have to bring up the website to check that now. But I think there's about 14. But the places that actually have places you can go and work in are London, Leeds, Brighton, Bristol, and Liverpool's about to sign on one, I think. I read on the mailing list last week. So those are the actually running ones. If I missed anyone out, I'm very sorry. But the number of groups grows every week, and we have a contact address on our website for help, and we try and help people setting up as quickly as possible. And we get an email about once a week from a new city trying to set a space up. They don't all succeed. Some don't have enough people in the city. Some people don't quite put enough effort in to make it succeed. But all the people are brilliant. We've met nearly everyone who runs the spaces, and they're all absolutely brilliant. Hopefully, everyone will be coming up to Maker Faire later this year. We're hoping to have a hackerspace section there, so we can introduce people at Maker Faire to the hackerspaces and the people they may be able to meet from their local towns.
Fantastic.
So we're trying to spread them across the UK as much as possible.
So, if in closing, is there anything that our listeners could or should do? Any kind of call for help that the hackspaces are putting out for? What can people do?
I mean, the first thing to do is see if there's a local space near you. I mean, you can either go to hackerspaces.org, which is the worldwide one, or there is a UK-based one at hackspace.org.uk. Find your local group if there is one. If they're floundering a bit, put some effort in and try and help them get going. Have regular meetings. Just meet up with people as much as possible. And, I mean, just tell everyone you know about hackerspaces. Tell them that there is a place they can go and work on things. They don't have to sit in their flat on their own working on things on the weekend. And if you're running a user group or anything like that, the hackerspaces will be happy to host it for you. If you're having difficulty finding somewhere, there is a space you can go to take it. It's a great way to do things, actually. If you can take a user group to a hackerspace, they often have the tools there that you don't have at your regular meetings. So, say if you're having a lug meet and you want to play with a bit of hardware you don't have, or you want to repair things while you're there, the chances are the hackerspace will have the tools to do that, or hardware you can play with. It's a great way to either meet new people and have somewhere to work. And actually, just before I forget, I do want to mention Mad Lab in Manchester, because they're quite large and they'll be very angry if I don't say that.
Well, we promise not to cut that bit out. Well, thanks very much for spending time to talk to us about Hackspace. It sounds very interesting. I look forward to coming along sometime.
Yeah, I really encourage people to. They're a great bunch of people, and they need all the help they can get. So and if you don't have one in your city already, it's definitely worth starting one. You can get in touch with us fairly easily. Just type Hackspace into Google, and I think we're the top result.
Excellent. Great stuff. Thanks for joining us, Jonty.
Not a problem.
Cheers, Em.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
It's time for the news and events.
In an act of collective rattle-throwing, the entire Open Solaris governing body have resigned en masse in protest over new owner Oracle's lack of interest in the Unix variant.
Yeah, I think they put a call out to Oracle and no reply.
Yeah, they've cited a number of reasons, but basically the fact that Oracle said it's going to kill it off, it kind of
Doesn't
makes them
help,
pointless continuing as a governing body, really, isn't it?
And other people are taking the code and, I believe, forking it already.
The joys of open source.
Yeah. Whether you'd want to fork Open Solaris is another question.
I don't know how successful the original Open Solaris was. I genuinely don't know. I'm not casting aspersions on it. Whether it was enough companies out there relying on it that somebody might fund it in a what's the Red Hat CentOS. So yeah, in the same way that the companies fund CentOS, for example.
The problem with that, though, it won't be like CentOS because the parent is kind of
true. I suppose they're going to have to do everything, aren't they? They're going to have to do any new development and write their own drivers.
Contrary to what you may have heard in previous episodes of this podcast, there is not a native Linux version of Steam coming at any time soon. Developers Valve have denied reports that the gaming engine is being ported to Linux.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame,
I guess.
Well, I have used it on other platforms, and it is quite a good way to download games and play them.
Sure. Yeah, it would be a good thing to have, I'm sure.
What does it do?
So it's like a portal for buying and playing games. So if you've got, like my laptop I've got in front of me, I can install Steam on that and then sign in with my Steam account and buy games, and it downloads them onto this machine. But then if I upgrade my machine, like buy a new laptop, I just install Steam and then it lists all the games that I've already bought, and I can just choose which ones to download onto that machine.
Nice.
So, I could, for example, on my laptop carry around Civilization, because that's a game that would play fairly well on this laptop, but at home have Team Fortress where I play online with other people, that kind of stuff. So it's quite a nice system, and it synchronises all your saves between machines, but not coming to Linux. Boo.
So you use it on Mac?
Yes, I have. Microsoft have pledged not to sue the developers of the mobile Android operating system Google if they choose to use the open source implementation of .NET Mono on their platform. This comes hot on the heels of Java owners Oracle suing Google for allegedly infringing 7 patents by using their own Java implementation on Android.
Well done, you got through it.
So
another battle in the patent wars.
So Mono is implementation of a free software implementation of .NET, or some of .NET bits of it, and Miguel de Casa and his people are porting Mono to Android so that you could develop .NET applications or port .NET applications onto Android phones. Ta-da. And everyone's been worried about Mono because its parent in some guise is Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
And they're worried that Microsoft will come along and stamp all over it in the same way that Oracle are currently doing. But it seems Microsoft are saying, no, actually, we won't do that.
That's because they love the free software.
Yeah, apparently so. Some people still aren't convinced.
Another day, another patent suit, as Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen, ironically, has launched suits for infringement of software patents he owns against AOL, Apple, eBay, Facebook, Google, Netflix, Office Depot, Office Max, Staples, Yahoo and YouTube, but not Microsoft. The suit covers 4 patents, including suggesting other items a buyer might like.
So what do stationery shops do that's so patent
I guess their
infringing?
online stores have used some of the technology that these patents are for, such as being able to suggest, you've brought some sellotape, you might like to buy some scissors.
Isn't there a big bookstore online that does that?
Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think pretty much every online store now does that. You've looked at this, therefore you might like this other thing.
Yeah.
I don't know why these particular companies have been chosen, whether they're particularly, companies that Paul Allen hates, or whether he just looks at the revenue and thinks, yeah, I'd like
I'll
a
have
piece
some of that.
Yeah, exactly.
The self-styled privacy-aware open alternative to Facebook is due for a launch on the 15th of September, called Diaspora.
Yep.
It hopes to do to social networking what Identica has done for microblogging, perhaps.
So what has Identica done for microblogging?
That was the question I was asking, I think, when I wrote that a little bit.
Mm.
I think it's going to be an uphill struggle.
Yeah.
In the same way that Identica has done its own thing very well, but it hasn't really dented the achievement of Twitter and the popularity of Twitter in their widespread non-open source communities.
I guess is that your goal? If you just want to be able to talk to your friends on a microblogging platform and discuss current topics and let your friends know what you're doing with status updates, then
the difficulty is that you need to have those people on it. Your friends need to be on it.
Oh, sure.
You could do it within a company, though.
Yep.
Yeah, and for example, Identica do that with their status.net. You can get that as a packaged solution internally. So these guys with Diaspora could have a similar thing for your internal social network within your organisation and get people, and then
You automatically get everybody on it then. That could be your internal directory.
And maybe if they have a federated setup like Identica, then different people on different Diaspora instances can friend someone on another one, unlike Facebook, where if you're not in it, you can't friend anyone.
Yes. Just Facebook has a huge, massive first move advantage there.
500 million
or something like that, yeah.
Only if it's competing, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, does Identica compete with Twitter?
Not really.
No. So it's an alternative, and it has features that Twitter doesn't have.
Yeah, and that's my point about the business side of it, because you've got the internal firewall thing there. So it's not actually a competition then against Twitter, Facebook, whatever, because you could never put the internal private stuff on Facebook.
It's like the stuff you use. What is it? Same time.
Yeah.
Use same time internally, but nobody uses it outside an organisation.
I think you'll find they do.
Lots of big companies.
Emails from IBM employees winging their way in as we speak.
That's Alan Pope speaking there, not anybody else.
Simon Phipps has blogged about the recent license change to Sun RPC code, which makes Linux really, truly free software once more, maybe.
So this is one for the license geeks, is it?
Yep.
So
it's an interesting read, actually, about the and
yeah.
I didn't even know about this. I didn't know that there was code in Linux that was non-free.
So this was code that Sun released back in the day, but under a broadly kind of do what you like with it
free
type
software-ish license, yeah.
but didn't quite tick all the boxes of sort of the Debian free software guidelines and things like that.
Well, it was before the GNU.
Debian existed, before GNU existed.
GNU existed, so yeah, and it was posted on Usenet.
But it had
which shows how old it is. You don't post code on Usenet. Well, some people do.
But it had been used in the Linux kernel almost since the get-go, I guess.
Yeah.
What's it do, the code?
It's to do with RPC, so remote procedure call and stuff, which is used for NFS, which is like network file system and things.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just an interesting story the way Simon tells it. So yeah, worth a read.
AMD have announced that future GPU products will no longer carry the ATI brand name, but will instead be branded AMD. Bye-bye ATI.
Yes.
essentially, because they bought ATI a few years ago.
Yeah, they did.
And now they're just killing off the brand, so we'll be able to buy AMD graphics cards.
I wonder if they'll have brand new drivers that will work nicely.
Or just
The same driver.
MV Radeon
Yeah,
to
just search and
AMD.
replace.
Yeah. Ohio Linux Fest is happening on the 10th to the 12th of September. It's free to get in, or $65 if you want food, drink, t-shirts, tickets and stuff, or just want to be supportive. From the Ubuntu community, Amber Grainer, David Mandela and Mackenzie Morgan are all speaking there. Plus there's UbuCon on the Friday. Any idea what an UbuCon is?
We had one before, a UDS once in Seville, I think it was. And yeah, it's just like a small Ubuntu event.
Sounds good.
And Osbar Camp is happening on the 25th to 26th of September in Dublin, and some of us are going.
Yeah, not you, Sam.
About 3 weeks away by the time this comes out.
Oh, crikey.
Ah.
I believe we get our talks
Right,
ready.
your talks.
Yes, we've got our talks listed on the timetable,
Prepare the
which we'll
show.
put a link in.
Any idea what we're going to talk about yet in the live recording?
Well, I'm sure something will come up in
Yeah.
the news between now and then. Or if people want to email us with suggestions on what we should do in the live show, maybe a raffle, then
How long can you stretch that out?
do let us know.
In Simon's absence, I'm going to do the command line love. Oh, God dear. We had this suggestion from Mark Johnson, who says, I've made another command line discovery this week. This time it's bashish, and I assume that's how you're supposed to pronounce it.
Bash-ish.
Bashish? Bashish? I think there's a good...
Hashish.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, there'd be a funny reason why it be said that way. Which lets you theme your bash prompts, what everybody needs in their life. You can download and install packages or from source, and then run bashish at the command line to use it. There is a command that will show you a list of available themes, and you can switch to particular themes, and he recommends a couple called Moan and Elite 2. And there's even an Ubuntu theme.
So what does this do to change your bash shell?
It makes it
Check.
themier.
Changes the colour of the dollar?
Or when you do ls, the colours of the files and stuff like that, I guess. I don't
How
know.
much can you customise a command line?
Well, I quite like Biobu, because that's got the little thing down the bottom, and I really like that, because having, notification when there are updates waiting and what the CPU's doing. And have I filled enough time for Tony to install it and have a look?
I've just of the website at bashish.sourceforge.net shows a variety of screen themes, and it shows a lot of colours and lots of different sort of, you can have different colour backgrounds, different colour text, but you can also do things like have it look like a Commodore 64, for example. So you can
Change all the font and everything.
yeah, change the font and the size and
Isn't that a terminal thing and not the bash thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there must be some. Must
play with
rely
that.
on different particular parts of Bash, but you could also render it with a nice sort of serif font, Times New Roman or some free software equivalent or whatever, if you really wanted to do that.
If you were mad.
Yes. Anyway, there's lots of different ones there, and they look vaguely fun. If your console is too dull, why not give it a go?
Thanks, Mark, for that command line love.
We're joined on the phone by Bruno Guerin, and you're a developer on Shotwell, is that right?
Yes. Well, I've basically started to contribute to Shotwell in my spare time.
Okay, and now Shotwell, we should say, is what's going to replace FSpot in the next version of Ubuntu as the default photo manager, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And what motivated you to start taking a look at Shotwell? How long have you been looking at it, and what got you into it?
Well, I haven't been looking at it very long, to be honest. But as a keen amateur photographer, I've been looking at photo administration applications for some time, and since I've been using Ubuntu, I haven't really enjoyed working with FSpot. So I eventually reverted to using Nautilus as a file management, as a photo management system.
What, just managing your own folders and dragging and dropping?
My own folders and everything on the grounds that it was actually quicker.
So what was it you disliked so much about FSpot then?
Just it being generally slow and the feeling that nothing was moving very much.
What, in terms of development?
In terms of development, yes. In terms
Right.
of features, And to be honest, I didn't spend a huge amount of time trying to find a replacement on the grounds that, well, as usual on Ubuntu and Linux in general, you've got about 10 million applications to do the same thing, and I didn't feel I had the time to look for something better than F-Spot. So I reverted to managing my photographs directly through the file manager. And then at some point, I can't remember where I read that, I read something about Shotwell becoming the replacing F-Spot in Maverick. So I thought, well, let's have a look then, see if I like it better.
And presumably you did.
Well, presumably, yes, I did. Yeah, basically what happened is that I thought, okay, well, how can I install Shotwell in Ubuntu? And they've got some fairly clear instructions on how to build it from source. So I thought, okay, well, let's give it a go. And it was actually quite simple.
What's it written in?
It's written in Vala, which is a language for the G-Object framework from GNOME. So I thought, well, okay, let's see what the application is like. And Shotwell is actually significantly faster than F-Spot. And I thought, okay, it's got some nice features, not quite as many as F-Spot, but it feels quite nice to use.
So when you say faster, does that mean that the UI is more responsive, that it's quicker to import photos or browse them?
It is. The UI is a lot more responsive, and in particular, when you plug in a camera to your laptop and it starts up the photo manager, it is a lot quicker than F-Spot, and that's for me is particularly important because my main camera is a Canon EOS, is a Canon digital SLR.
Yeah.
And I've got an 8 gig card in it. So if I've got a card that's a bit full, with F-Spot it will take absolute ages before I can actually do anything.
Yeah, it imports. Yeah, it does import pretty slowly. It browses all of it shows you all the images in a directory first, and then it copies them over, and it's pretty.
Yeah, but it
intensive.
does that. It does that in a modal dialog, which means that it actually blocks the whole UI while it's doing it. Whereas Shotwell, first, is a lot faster at displaying the thumbnails on the screen, and the UI to do this is a lot nicer as well.
Does it import in the background?
Yeah, it basically does it in a camera page. So the good thing about Shotwell is you plug in the camera, and it doesn't fire up a modal dialog at that point. It just gives you a new entry in the bar on the left, and it's your decision to go and click on that entry and have it start generating the thumbnails for the photographs on the camera.
So can you still browse your existing library and process it and adjust images while it's importing in the background?
I haven't tried that, to be honest.
Sorry, put you on the spot there.
But it doesn't import everything at first. At first, it just generates thumbnails, and once you've decided what you wanted to import, that's when it will do the bulk of the work.
Right.
All right.
Is it? Do most people not just stick the card in or plug the camera in and then just say import everything? Is that not normally what people do?
I suspect yes, a lot of people would do this. But on the other hand, when you've got quite a busy card, and what I do quite often is that I won't necessarily wipe the content of the card between sessions. So I may come in with a card that has photographs that I've already imported.
Yes.
So I may not necessarily want to import it with it.
And does it cope with duplicates okay?
Yes, it does. Basically what it does is it generates a hash on the thumbnail to identify whether it already has it in its database. So when you import, you've got an option to import only the new photographs.
Ah, excellent. And can it cope with things that the sort of more advanced photographer uses, like raw images, which are almost like digital negatives for a photograph, as well as the JPEG version of the same picture?
Well, partially. Basically, the latest version that will be in Maverick uses UF-RAW to deal with RAW format. So it will import the RAW pictures. At the moment, it will import the RAW and the JPEG as two different pictures.
Right. Okay.
There is a ticket in the track system at Yorba, who actually developed Shotwell, to add a feature to consider the RAW and the JPEG of the same image as the same image, really.
So once you've been playing with it, what did you get involved in terms of coding? I guess you knew Vala already.
No, I didn't.
Oh.
But I've got a lot of experience in a number of computer languages, Java in particular. But I've played with C, C++, Python, and a lot of different things. So I first had to look at the code and thought, okay, well that's good, I can understand, because at the end of the day, Vala is a C-sharp-like language, so it's part of the C family, and it's an object-oriented language. So I thought, okay, well I can understand the code, it's quite clear, it's quite well laid out, and I thought, is there anything I can do? So at the time, there was a couple of very easy bugs to fix. So I chose one, fixed it, and realized it was actually quite easy to do. And I submitted the patch pack. And I basically had a reply, I think from Jim Nelson from Yorba, within 24 hours, saying, okay, thanks for the patch. I did a few minor adjustments and it's now in trunk.
Nice, cool.
Very nice. So basically I was like, okay, not only do I feel I can contribute because I can understand the code, but also the guys at Yorba were very, very responsive and welcome contributions.
Is that different from other experience you'd had in terms of contribution?
Generally, yes. I would say there's probably a variety of reasons for that.
Right.
One of them being that having now met some of the Yorba people at Guadec, they are very keen on what they do and very keen to get as much feedback as possible, and that's very visible on the mailing list. And there's possibly also the fact that because the product is quite new, they are not yet snowed under requests and all that sort of things.
I guess once it hits 10.10 and gets released, they're going to get a flood of bug reports from people.
Yes, absolutely.
I understand there's some work been done on an importer, because when we're moving users potentially from one photo suite to another, we really need a migration path. And
yes, so that's now in 0.7, which is actually in the Maverick repositories already.
Yeah, I actually tried it at the weekend. I pointed it at my it actually offers fspot as an option to import from.
Oh, right.
And you point it offers the name of the database, the fspot SQLite database.
Yeah, because fspot's SQLite backed, isn't it?
Yeah, and you just press import, and it just sat there and spun for a while and imported all and it was pretty quick actually importing all the photos. Given there was in my collection about 8,000 photos, which I thought was pretty good.
That's not bad, is it? And is that something you work directly on?
Yes. Well, basically what happened is that after I had, when I started getting involved, then I gradually started getting to look at more complex stuff. And in particular, there was one point when I plugged in my digital SLR and Shotwell would not recognize it. So I thought, okay, I've got to fix that. And I find the bug, I started working on the bug, and it so happened that the resolution for the bug got me to actually solve a major defect in Shotwell. So after that I thought, okay, well, I've done some fairly complex stuff with the software, so let's see if there's anything I can do that's a bit more convoluted. And one of the obvious defects that you had in Launchpad against Shotwell for that was planned to solve for 10.10 was the import from fspot. So I had to look. I thought, well, can I do this? And at the end of the day, my day job involves designing some fairly hairy software systems and looking at some fairly weird databases. So I was like, okay, well, that's what I do every day. So let's give it a go.
So is it just a case of it queries the SQLite database that F-Spot uses plucks out all the photos and metadata and then inserts that into the Shotwell database.
Yeah, that's basically what it does.
Oh, cool. And does it respect all the data that F-Spot has about the photo? I guess all the EXIF stuff is in the photo itself, but what about
tags and
any other metadata that you
multiple variants and
events and places and all that kind of stuff?
Well, actually the F-Spot database is extremely simple in its design, so that wasn't too complicated. I mean, it's got 8 tables, and I think the most complex one must have something like 10 columns. So, so it's a very simple database.
And is there equivalent to all the columns in the F-Spot database? Is there equivalent places to store that in Shotwell?
Most of it, yes. There are a few things that Shotwell doesn't do, like hierarchical tags. So what the import will do is it will import all the tags and just flatten the hierarchy.
Okay, so if you had like places, Europe, and then within Europe, UK, it would flatten that down to UK?
Yes, it would. Yes.
Right, okay. Well, that's not so bad, I guess.
Depends how many tags you have. If you have thousands...
And how long you'd spent hierarchically ordering all your photos, it might make you somewhat annoyed.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, hierarchical tags is one of the tickets in Shotwell, so it's planned for a future release, and at that point we'll update the import to keep the hierarchy.
And can you run the importer multiple times?
Yeah, as many as you want.
Will it just ignore photos that it's already got in the database? What will it do when, like, if you run the importer a second time? Maybe it falls over or whatever while you're debugging. Will it carry on okay?
Yes, I mean it will do the same as camera import. It will only import what's not yet in the database.
Okay. And what other features have you got planned for Shotwell that you'd like to actually have a handle in developing? Well,
there's one that Adam the Hubi Orbit team have planned for 0.8, which is send via email, which is quite a nice feature. Which would be quite a nice feature to have.
I have to wonder if people send photos via email anymore now that we upload photos to Facebook, Flickr and Picasa.
Well,
Sorry?
My mum would.
Well, yeah, I think my mum would as well, actually, having said that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and in the same vein, I think sending by email or creating a CD would be the sort of useful stuff for a certain category of users.
Yeah.
What I would be very interested in looking at as well, which I've discussed with the Yorby guys, is the ability to be to have a more complex version management for the photograph, so you can have different versions of the same photograph.
Okay, at the moment, do you have like the original and then a modified version?
Yes, that's what you've got.
And you've only got 2?
Yes.
Ooh.
And for instance, you couldn't do things like, I want to have a black and white version of that photo and a sepia version of that photo. So that's the sort of things I would...
And does F-Spot do that?
F-Spot can have multiple revisions, plenty.
F-Spot has the concept of several versions of the same photo. It's not very intuitive in the way it deals with it.
Does it just create a new file in the same folder with a new name that says modified or something?
Exactly that, yeah. So, but you can pick from, looking at that one image, you can pick any of the revisions from a drop-down menu and sort of switch between them.
So I could, for example, my original photo, I could crop it.
Yeah.
And then remove the red eye.
Yep.
And then go, black and white or something, and pick the cropped one to go black and white from, or something like that.
And it would store each of those revisions as separate files on the disk, but within one place within the user interface. So if you're doing a lot of more complex editing rather than just a basic retouch and maybe take some red eye out, it is a useful feature to have. So it would definitely be good to see that in Shotwell in the future.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Shotwell is not designed to do complex editing. I mean, it's got the ability to edit a photo through an external editor like GIMP.
Right.
But yeah, it would be nice if it was if it had the ability to manage versions, several versions of the same photograph, because that's what a photo management application should be good at.
Given people are used to f-spot, I mean, we've already had f-spot for a few years now, and applications like Picasa can do the basic editing, like cropping, red eye, all that, deblurring, automatically emphasizing, and that kind of stuff. Do you see it as a bit of a flaw that on the day of release of 10.10, Shotwell won't have those features, and so we'll kind of regress?
Well, Shotwell does have a lot of these features.
Oh, okay.
It can do the red eye, it can do crop, it can do... there's a number of tools where it can do some very... it can do mostly what f-spot does to a photograph. So it has a lot of this.
But if you wanted to, you could fire up an external editor and do the more complex stuff.
Yes.
In GIMP, which we don't ship either at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, by any means, I think that when f-spot comes out in Ubuntu 10.10, it will be missing a few features. Shotwell will be missing a few features compared to f-spot.
Right. But it gains in speed.
Yes, and I don't think there's anything major. Obviously, there will be some users for whom the missing features will be a deal breaker and who will want to stay with f-spot.
And of course they can do that because it's still going to be in the repositories. f-spot is still going to be available.
And if they upgrade, it'll still be there. Yeah. We don't remove f-spot in the upgrade.
Of course.
No. For some users will probably want to stay with f-spot. But I think, considering that we've just had an LTS with Lucid, Maverick is probably the right time to start introducing some new applications.
As some people call it, the cowboy release, the one that goes just after LTS.
That's what it should be. It should be the opportunity to bring in some new software that will be improved over different releases. And seeing the speed at which the team at Yorba improves Shotwell, I wouldn't be surprised if Shotwell had more features than f-spot by the time we get to 11.04.
Wow, that's pretty fast. Okay. Well, thanks very much for talking to us about Shotwell, and we look forward to trying it out in 10.10.
Look forward to giving it a go.
Okay, well, thank you.
Marvellous.
Cool, thanks for talking to us. Cheers then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And now it's time for a bit about Ubuntu.
Ubuntu has a new wallpaper in 10.10 Maverick, and it's not pretty.
Oh.
Have you seen it?
I'm looking now. It looks a lot like Lucid.
Yeah, with bigger orange splodges in.
Yeah.
The guys over at OMG Ubuntu posted a blog post about it, and they got quite a few negative comments. But there has been some comment that this actually might not be the final wallpaper, that we might get a surprise later in the cycle, and we'll get something that looks less like sick on the desktop.
It looks rather like the one that we've currently got, but worse.
Yes.
I like the one we've currently got.
Yeah, I quite like it's my default wallpaper on all my machines. But this
I don't think it's missing two orange bludges, though.
No.
I think that's what it is, really, isn't it?
Yes.
What this needs is more blodges. And we should congratulate Laura on inventing that word.
It just seemed right.
There's a position for you in the artwork team.
Colin Watson has put out a call for help for
Grub 2 problem.
That's the one.
Yeah, there's a bug filed in Debian and Ubuntu, and it's not a specifically Debian or Ubuntu bug.
No, it's to do with Windows applications, isn't it? Interfering in things that it really shouldn't interfere with.
Yeah.
Such as the boot sector and therefore Grub.
Yeah, there's a chunk of, like, right at the start of the disk that's used by Grub to store part of the bootloader. So you've got, like, the very, very start of the disk, and then there's a little bit further in where the Grub core goes, which in previous versions of Grub, it was called Stage 1.5. So there's like Stage 1, Stage 1.5, and Stage 2 or something like that.
It's like Harry Potter.
Okay. Tony, there's this bit of the disk that's got stuff in it that we need for Grub to boot properly, and applications on Windows muck it up.
Yeah, and not just applications that deal with partitioning, it seems. Some of the sort of disk guard tools, you might expect them to muck around or monkey around with the boot.
Or antivirus or something like that.
Yeah, boot sector viruses exist on Windows, all that sort of stuff. But things apparently like Adobe CS3 write data to this little bit at the beginning of the hard disk.
Yeah, and it seems to be to do with DRM and licensing and managing the
as far as I can tell from the blog post that Colin's written, it's so that you can't uninstall the software and then reinstall it and try and get around any copy protection and stuff that way. When you've installed it the first time, it's written a little string to this bit of the boot sector, and it therefore won't take that away when you uninstall the software. Mm-hmm. So if you've got a 30-day trial or something, you can't just keep uninstalling and reinstalling to get free software. Free as in illegal type software. I hope that's clear. Yeah, so it's a bit naughty, really. I guess there's probably no standard that says you must or mustn't write things to this bit or the other of the hard disk, but it's going to cause Linux users a problem.
Yeah, and it does, because people boot into Windows, and as soon as they boot into Windows and open up their favourite bit of Windows software, which then goes off and monkeys with that bit of the disk, then when they finish the session and they reboot into Linux, Grub can't find the second part of its bootloader and just falls over. So you can't boot.
So
into either operating system.
Oh, right. So is that where the Windows boot sector or whatever the equivalent?
No, there's nothing there. As far as Windows is concerned, there's nothing of importance in that part of the disk.
So why does Adobe even go find it?
Well, it goes and writes that to there, as Tony was saying, that it puts something in there, a string to say, I have been installed. So when you come to uninstall it, it doesn't rub that out. And if you try and reinstall it, it says, no, you've installed this before.
It's Windows developers assuming that nobody's ever going to use that bit of the disk, or them not caring the fact that Linux users do use it. One or the other.
There's a new 10 to NLTS training course available.
There's some updates to the training courses that Canonical have developed. There's an announcement that says...
This says, we are delighted to announce brand new courses based on the current long-term support release, which is Ubuntu 10.04, Ubuntu Certified Professional, deploying Ubuntu Server Edition, its accelerated version, and deploying Ubuntu Enterprise Cloud are now available in classrooms near you through Ubuntu training partners. These courses are also available online or e-learning versions, which is good news. The slightly, perhaps the sting in the tail, if you like, is that the Ubuntu Certified Professional and Linux Professional Institute are no longer going to be working together on that one. Previously, Linux Professional Institute, LPI, have been certifying the Ubuntu Certified Professional bit of the qualification.
So that's the LPI 101, 102, and then the
301, I think it's called.
199.
199, sorry, yes. But apparently they're going to stop that after the 30th of September, so just over a month. And the training will still be available, but there won't be a certification bit at the end of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And there's a double whammy, actually, because another course that's not mentioned in that list is the Ubuntu desktop course, which was developed on for 8.04, and they're not updating that for 10.04.
Oh, right.
They're just...
Is that because Ubuntu is now so inherently, intrinsically usable that you don't need a training course?
Well, either that or people just aren't paying and putting bums on seats and can't justify the expense of them updating the training material.
There's a lot to do, I guess, when you update between two different versions.
Way back in Season 1, weren't we going to do some certification? Didn't we pledge to do this?
That's a wild accusation.
Nobody ever listens to those old episodes anyway, so...
I don't know what you're talking about. It must have been someone else.
It rings a bell.
I actually got access to one of the training courses, the online version, and reviewed some parts of it and filed some bugs against it because there were some mistakes in omissions. And it wasn't that great. I wasn't that impressed. I mean, okay, I already knew most of what it said, but I didn't think it's something that I could pass to someone else and that they would learn everything they needed to do to pass that certification test. I don't know. I'm not convinced at the value of those training materials.
Well, you think about the equivalent Windows training. I mean, so few people would go and do, here's a certificate to learn how to use a Windows desktop. At best, they might do something like the ECDL, which deals with the application level, sort of Office applications. They rarely sort of go, here's a course which tells you, what to click and where and how to use different dialog boxes for this, that and the other.
But on the Windows side, you get it out of the box. every machine comes with it. So you're kind of thrown in at the deep end. With Ubuntu, you're kind of making an active choice that you're choosing Ubuntu, and as part of that, you need to learn how to use it.
But it could be an active choice that your company has made.
True.
And you've still got to sort of, get on with it and get using it after a particular date or whatever. I think a lot of that sort of in internal knowledge about here's where to click to find solitaire or something is probably done in-house and passed on in a formal or informal basis just with the local expert. And that's the end of the bit about Ubuntu. It's time for your feedback, and we're going to start with a voicemail from one George Castro.
Hey guys, this is George Castro. I'd just like to get the word out to people listening to your podcast that we have an Ubuntu Stack Exchange opening up for people to ask questions to get support in Ubuntu. So if you're interested in it, you can check it out at ubuntu.stackexchange.com. And we have people from Ubuntu teams already participating to answer users' questions. It's a lot more interesting and useful than a lot of the existing methods that we have because it's based on the concept of reputation. So better answers are voted on by people who use it and the people who ask the questions. So over time, the better answers float to the top and the bad answers float to the bottom. So it's a really useful way to get really good answers to people's questions without having to deal with any of the noise that's out there in other mediums. So hope you guys check it out. Once again, it's ubuntu.stackexchange.com. Hope to see you there.
That was really interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've tried it actually.
Okay, and
it's quite interesting. It's like a forum,
right?
But it's good in that you earn badges for stuff you do, like people like rate your hire. But that's good because then when you see an answer from someone who's rated highly, chances are that answer might be worth reading.
But how do you know the quality of the people who are doing the rating?
You can rate those as well.
So it's a bit Pokemon-y. You've got to get all the badges and
if you don't feed it will die.
That's one of the other things. Tamagotchi, that's the one.
But this sounds like it gets around the negatives that Poppy has against forums.
No, because you still have to go there.
Yeah, okay.
But then you always have to go to any support, thing.
Yeah.
But it's quite nice. Stuff gets highlighted when it has lots of answers. So if it's a popular question and you can convert questions into wiki pages, to become
cool.
So rather than someone asking a question like my sound card is broken, how do I fix it? If someone says what are the best 10 apps to install on Ubuntu, loads of people contribute like their list of 10. So that's less of a support question and more of a kind of like community wiki page.
Well, it'd certainly be interesting to find out what everybody else thinks of that. You should email in at podcast@ubuntu-uk.org or via the other ways, which we'll talk about right at the end of the show. Thanks for that, George. And also, Russell Dickinson emailed in to say,
I just wanted to let you know that I read the show notes, all of them, mainly because they're funny. When each show comes out, it's the show notes I read first.
Oh,
that's you that write those, Alan, isn't it?
Yeah.
Aww.
I think the reason why he emailed in is because in the last episode, I was getting a bit bored at the end. So I put, finally we have your feedback. And then I just typed after it, I wonder if anyone reads these notes. Let us know in the voicemail.
Right. I'm going to try something similar this time around, if I remember.
Aldo Noguera wrote in to ask me about Lux.
Yes, you talked about Flux last time, didn't you?
I did.
There is another software called Redshift that does the same thing as Flux. Redshift is certainly free software. I'm not sure about Flux.
No, I don't know about Flux, actually.
Quickly, Google it now. Laura and I will talk about Flux for a few seconds. Do you remember Flux, Laura?
It did some... Oh, it changed the brightness or
yeah.
shading?
And the colour temperature.
Colour temperature.
You're not supposed to talk. You're supposed to be Googling. Brightness and the colour temperature of the screen
yes.
so that you don't get sore eyes when you go to bed and to compensate for the lighting environment around you and things like that.
Yes. You don't get a really dark room and a really bright screen.
That's right, yes, which is bad for your eyes, apparently.
Can't see any source code. Just noticed the FAQ is ACK. It's got a dot between the and the ACK.
I've heard that on the internet as well. Other places.
So we don't know.
No. Maybe we'll have worked it up by this. Maybe somebody else could email in and let us know what the licensing is for Flux.
Yes.
Chris Blow, aka Lumpy Custard, asked us to pontificate on this matter.
There's a bug that's been part of the 100 Paper Cuts project for a few times now, and there's still no resolution in sight. It's bug 382703. Unlike the buttons rigmarole, where I shared your opinion of who cares, this, I feel, is far more important. So what's this bug?
The bug is to do with naming of the home directory, essentially.
Terminology of it. On the Places menu, I think, primarily.
It's called Home Folder.
It's called Home Folder, and some people say it should be Home because the term Home Folder isn't used anywhere else. But then other people say that maybe it should just be the actual name of your home folder, which for me is Laura, because my home is /home/Laura, because the actual home folder is /home, which isn't anybody's home folder, confusingly. And basically the comments go on for about 10 minutes along those lines.
You read those quick. 10 minutes. But it's an hour of my life I'll never have again.
It's not an entirely spurious thing, though, because consistent naming is important in helping people to find their way around a user interface.
And also there's the problem of translations. If they just call it home, that doesn't translate into other languages like Spanish, you're going to have casa or something. That doesn't make sense. People don't call it.
It sounds like most languages use the term personal folder anyway. So they kind of, to be honest, I think the non-English language can just sit back and watch and see what English manages to come up with.
It doesn't matter specifically if we were to call it home, because another language could still call it something else, as long as they were then able to consistently substitute that to where we had used home.
Which they do. I think the difficulty comes if in English we decided we weren't going to have home at all and we were just going to have the username.
Yeah.
Because then it's a different variable, essentially. So then other languages would then have the username, which is fine, but it may or may not work for everybody anyway.
So you'd have Laura, a folder called
Places Laura.
Places Laura.
So if you're then helping, say, your mum over the phone, you're saying, say, click Places,
and then your
mum.
name, and then your
username,
whatever you don't know the other person's
it's no
username.
different than the problem we have at the moment, where you say double click my computer. Well, your computer? No, your computer. There isn't something called your computer. It's called my computer. Yeah.
What they should do is assign every drive a letter, and then just refer to it like that.
Yeah,
that's a really good idea.
Yeah, A.
Yeah, and then B.
So some people suggested using the term My Documents, and then somebody else, I think, just to be a bit contrary, says, why don't we just call it My Files? It's like, because people don't use files.
I know.
I got slightly worried when people started +1 in My Files.
Why is My Files bad?
Because people don't use files. People use documents or music or whatever. File is just the format that it's in.
And there are folders within the standard Ubuntu home directory that has music, and one called for videos and one for podcasts and stuff and photos that are
they're all files.
They're all files, and they're all within that one parental file folder directory.
My things.
My thing.
My
I like
stuff.
My Stuff personally.
Laura's
My
stuff.
stuff. Yeah.
Laura's stuff.
Places. Stuff.
Yeah. Can you imagine translating?
Yeah.
What's that sort of word that describes
Detritus.
clutter? Laura's clutter.
Places. Detritus.
For the Latin version. Yui Scherkamp also had a bug he wanted to bring to our attention.
The thread deals with Lucid losing mouse and keyboard input at random times and has reached an epic length of 100 pages, yet the powers that be over at Canonical seem to be reluctant to delve deeper into the issue, which is causing headaches and stability problems for countless Ubuntu users, new and old. It's rather tough to track down, it seems. I'd like to hear your opinion on this issue, whether you've been affected by it and what can or could be done to deal with it more effectively in the future. I've been a long-time Linux user since 1994 or so, but right now I'm having a rather hard time recommending Ubuntu to my friends, workmates and relatives, and I'm considering switching distros. While I still think Ubuntu the most friendly distro out there by far, the stability needs to be addressed in order to make it a viable alternative.
I've just looked at the thread. It's actually Ubuntu forums post, hence the page count. It's actually at 94 pages, which is quite a long thread, I guess. But firstly, do you get the impression people are now using us to vent the fact that their particular bugs aren't fixed?
Yeah.
Good me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're not precious about that. But secondly, I've not experienced that bug, which
Which bug is it?
It's the Launchpad bug number.
No, what's the bug?
The bug is to do with keyboards, USB devices, particularly keyboards and mice, sort of seemingly getting randomly disconnected and not reconnecting and things.
Ooh.
Which I haven't experienced at all.
No, and I use USB things at work.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, my keyboard upstairs I think is PS2, but other than that, everything's USB.
And in those 94 pages that you've read,
I in the same way that Laura read the comments on the other.
Except that I did.
You did? Oh, wow.
I think so.
There's a lot of people saying, I've tried reinstalling lots of times to fix it and things. So it sounds like it should be a driver issue, really. If it's
And
that
is there
fundamental.
a Launchpad bug file for it?
Not that I noticed, but there probably is, I'm sure. I'm sure people wouldn't just rant about something for 100 pages without filing a bug in the proper place.
Do you think?
I have faith in the community. I hope there is anyway. To be honest, I haven't read all 100 pages of the forum thing.
It's up to 100 now in the 3 minutes since we started talking about this.
The 197 pages are very
200.
long. 200, yeah, 300 or 400. No, I haven't read them all, to be honest. And
It's tricky because there's not a lot we can do if we've never experienced that bug.
clearly we can't just tell Canonical to fix it.
No, and well,
We don't
my
know that.
recommendation would always be file a bug, first of all, capture as much data as the developers ask you for, and try and reproduce the bug and narrow it down to a reproducible set of circumstances that causes the bug to occur.
Yeah, absolutely. And make sure you've got all the latest kernel updates and things installed as well, or any other updates.
And also try the mainline kernel from the kernel PPA, which is
Yes.
an unmodified upstream kernel.org kernel compiled for Ubuntu and packaged in a nice deb.
I mean, the USB stack in the Linux kernel is very stable. There's USB 2 has been around for a number of years now, and I've never really had any problems with it.
Oh, well, there is an outstanding bug about mass storage devices where they go offline. I don't know if that's vaguely related, but I suffered from this. I had a 1 gig USB stick. You stick it in, and it just wouldn't mount. And you pull it out, put it in, pull it out, put it in. And eventually, you put it in enough times, it works.
Right, I'll bear that in mind. There does seem to be quite a lot of people leaping on the back of this forums thread and sort of saying, oh yeah, and also the screen freezes when I log in, or the hibernate function that now doesn't work.
Oh, by the way, my Astra's making a knocking noise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Box will reap. There seems to be quite a lot of people with other random problems they're throwing in there. But, hopefully somebody has filed a decent bug, and if enough people say it affects them, I'm sure it'll get some attention.
We'll put a link to the forum and the bugs in the show notes.
And that's all your feedback. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. You can find out how to get in touch with us on our website, podcast.ubuntu-uk.org, and you can find our voicemail numbers there, and you can find our Twitter and Identica things, and you can find our Facebook group and the IRC channel and all sorts of things on there. Go there and find it out. Let us know what you think of the show, or give us your thoughts about Ubuntu and the community around it by any of those means, or you can email podcast@ubuntu-uk.org. We will be back in 2 weeks.
Yes. See you then.
See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.